Hello, I'm Brandon Bonifer, creator and founder of the Key to Success Planning System. And a number of years ago, when I started developing this planner, my real intentions were to develop an organization operating system. And what is an organizational operating system, you ask? Well, for me, it's a business plan. It's a structure to my personal, professional, and organizational life. See, when I started planning, I owned multiple businesses, and at times it was very challenging to keep my vision, my challenges, my resources that I had available to me in line with the goals and aspirations that I wanted to achieve each year. When I started out with my businesses over 20 some years ago, the thing that really helped me thrive was being able to have a business plan. But as the business got bigger and more busy and innovation and technology started to be at the forefront of everything that we were doing, going back to reevaluating and writing a new business plan every year was very time consuming, and a lot of times I got lost in the weeds of doing so. So as I developed this planning system, I wanted to be able to take shape and have framework for what it was I was doing each and every day in my daily planning to help structure the success that I wanted to achieve. So I developed this organizational operating system, this one-page business plan to help create that framework in my professional life as well as my organization. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're starting a business, if you're managing a new division, if you're launching a product or service, if you're trying to grow by any means whatsoever, I promise you the next 10 to 15 minutes as we spend going through this organizational plan is going to be life-changing. It's going to be something that's going to help spark your creative energies and help you gain focus on what it is that you're trying to achieve. So I encourage you, I ask you, take a few minutes and consider. Now, we offer this in our business and executive planner, but at the same time, you can follow along on a piece of paper and illustrate what we're talking about yourself. Or you can jump on our platform and learn about how you can utilize it in your day with our daily planner. But the goal with this organizational operating system is to get you started on the right path so that your success isn't something at the horizon, but something you begin to see each and every day as you move through the coming year. So let's get started. When I first started engaging with the organizational operating system, the one thing I wanted to ask you is, what is your vision? Not just this year or next year, but over the few years in front of you, what is it that you want to achieve? What is it in the business or in your professional life that you want to embark on? How do you see your role? How do you see things taking shape? And I ask you to take a few simple moments and go ahead and write out that vision. You can do it in a wireframe model, or you can do it in an individual bullet list. From there, I want you to start to uncover some of your key boulders. What are the challenges that you're facing in your organization? It's so important for us to understand our challenges, because if we start to reflect on our vision and what it is we're trying to achieve, by addressing our challenges, we're able to help take shape and build some roots behind our vision. In this process, I simply just want you to be high level. Think, what is my challenges? Don't think of necessarily the solutions at this time. We'll get to that in a few minutes. And then as you move through this, discuss with yourself or even a team, what is the key resources? You didn't get to where you are today because you don't have talents. Talents is what allows us to move forward, and if we focus on what we're good at, we'll become stronger in everything that we do. So indicate the different resources and talents you have available to us. I once had a gentleman that worked for me in sales, and he was an individual that if we did something and it went against his core beliefs, he just couldn't execute a strategy. And I recognized that early on in his career, so I started to adapt and perfect what we were doing so it aligned with what his beliefs were, and he rocketed to the front in sales. Well, I think that's important to understand in our own lives. If there's something in your organization or in you that just does not align with what you're trying to do, you won't have the same results that you should expect. So I ask everyone, tell me, what is your core fundamental beliefs? So as you're building out these goals for yourself, does those beliefs align with your goals and help make your action plan more true to what it is that you do each and every day? And then from there, we all have to be accountable. And if you're going to be a business owner and you're going to have staff and teams below you, you're going to hold them accountable, right? But as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, sometimes the hardest thing to do is to hold ourselves accountable. And sometimes we don't even recognize if we're having true progress in what we're doing. Through here, we ask you to establish how you measure your success. What is that accountability process? Just like when you go into a physician's office and they take your heart rate and your blood pressure, they're establishing a baseline for your health before they start to address your chief complaint. In this scenario, we're establishing what is our key vitals to our organization. What is the number of orders that we're processing, the percentage of invoices and estimates that we're finishing and are rewarded throughout the sales season, to other things, to like what is our average ticket, what is our gross margin. Every organization has their own set of key vitals. It's really important that you establish your own, because that way you're able to measure your progress at a moment's notice. From here, if we do all these things, what does the next 10 years look like? What are we really after, and what is the direction that we're headed at? So outline your 10-year target. And for me, probably one of the most important things in my organizational development career was being able to mitigate my risk. Anytime that I developed a business plan or had a discussion with someone that was lending me money or providing me additional resources, I addressed the elephant in the room. What was my risk assessment, and how was I going to mitigate that? What was my absolute needs? So throughout this process, ask yourself, year by year, month by month, day by day, whatever the nature of measurement that you're using, what is the absolute requirement? For example, if one of your goals was to grow by 12%, what is the absolute that you need to do as an organization each year then to maintain growth and stability? And maybe with inflation, it's 3 or 4% growth is the absolute. The whole goal and the whole concept behind addressing absolutes, it's the point when you see yourself not achieving your absolute, that you have to get on top of your box and make a decision, make a pivot, and change the results. If you don't address those risks, you'll find yourself in a sticky situation. Next in this one-page business plan, I want you to define what your role is. What is your actionable items? What are you holding you and your team accountable for? And then how are you going to develop a routine of processes to help achieve what it is that you're holding yourself accountable for? If you're saying each week you're going to do this, how are you implementing that into a process or a plan so that it gets done? We can't just say something, we have to do something as well. And then from there, we get to the core part of the one-page business plan. What is the organization? What is your professional role going to look like over the next 3 years? Indicate 3 key goals that you want to achieve each year. And sometimes these goals are in cadence of each other. One goal affects the ability for the next goal to happen, and that's totally okay. But that helps build framework on what it is the organization is looking to achieve. Now, if you ever read the book, The E-Myth, The Entrepreneur Myth, you'll learn about how the great businesses often grow and then find themselves in a position where they reach a plateau, or in some cases, sadly enough, implode on themselves. This entrepreneur myth is sometimes we grow outside our ability to continue growing. And a lot of times the reason for that is because we don't expect the unexpected. No different than people will say, hey, I can look in the rearview mirror and hindsight is always 20/20. I ask you to play business, play your role in the organization, no different than you would play a game of chess. It's not always about the next move, but it's the moves you make down the road that are really going to impact your organization. And as we find success by reaching our goals, ask yourself, if I grow by that 12% and I achieve that goal, what's the impact on the organization? How does my success affect our business or my own life? And how are you going to adapt? So for example, if you grow 12%, what does that mean for your vendors, your logistics, your ability to produce the raw materials and get those widgets out the door? What does it mean for your sales team, your customer service, your support staff? Ask yourself those questions and then determine what is the reaction or the adaptation process. If we can say, hey, we are going to grow at 12% and we recognize that this is going to have an influence on our ability to produce the widgets and grow because we have limited resources, meaning that our vendors can't supply us what we currently need, we don't have the staff or the machinery to produce the widget, we can address that in early stages. I'll give you a prime example. I had an individual once that I approached and I said, hey, we're going to have some growth this year, and as we go through the growth, we're going to have to make some changes in your department. And I said that's going to consist of us cross-training members from other areas of the team and even bringing leadership at time to help bring down the pressure or the amount of workflow that your team is having to work through so that we can continue to achieve the results that we have as part of our fiscal plan. And at first the individual looked at me, and then I paused and I said, and as we make it through to reach our end goal, we're going to commit more resources to you and your team. And the person looked at me and they were satisfied by that answer. Now think what would happen in 6 months if I came to that individual and said, hey, I have executive team coming downstairs and I have Bonnie and Karen from the front office, they're going to come back here and they're going to be helping you with your production. That person would throw up walls and say, whoa, what's going on? Am I not adequate enough to do the job? Well, the reality is when I approached the individual and said, hey, remember a series of months ago when I talked about how we had this goal of growing, and through that growth we knew there was going to be some growing pains in logistics, and I offered the idea of cross-training and bringing others into the department to help you manage that pressure point? And the individual says yes. I said, well, today's the day we're going to do that. We're going to have to start training some of that staff to help you out. And the person was overwhelmed and excited because they recognized that the change in the adaptation that was taking place here was a part of a plan that we had been working towards for several months, and that the organization was seeing success, and he gets to be a part of those next steps in that process, knowing that the reward is as we make it through the process, we're going to make additional commitments. Those conversations are so easier to have with individuals than to just go ahead and do things and ask and expect the team to just go about your wishes as you move through this process. And the last thing is your role in the organization. As a business owner that's starting out, you're going to play a lot of hats. You could be the janitor, the bookkeeper, the salesperson, the person that's doing the production, QC, whatever the nature is, you have a lot of hands in the fire. If you're in an organization where you're larger and you're the leader of a team, you have equal responsibility in making sure that the team is able to see the results and reach their individual goals as well. It's so important for you to recognize what your role is so you can bring this whole one-page business plan together. Why this organizational operating system is so successful is because at a quick glance, you can see everything from your vision down to your annual goals and understand how those goals are going to affect your business so you can begin to make adaptations along the way. And that's where the plan gets even more exciting, because as we move through this, we have the ability to track our results on a quarter-by-quarter basis. And I coach and encourage all the organizations that I work with is that every 90 days we get back on our box and reflect on what we're doing and reset our priorities to align with the goals that we want to achieve. And we do that through our progress monitor each and every year. And then from there, there's 3 support pages, and these 3 support pages really help give you the fundamental tools that you need to help grow through the different challenges that you have. And one of them is the Boulder Breakdown. The Boulder Breakdown is something I find that's very unique because what it does is helps us understand and identify what it is that we are challenged by. How is it impacting the organization? It's not one thing just to recognize if there's a challenge in front of us, but how is it truly impacting the organization? What has been the previous attempts to break that boulder down? And what is the long-term risk of how this challenge is impacting the organization? I think that is probably one of the most critical pieces of this process, because as we look at multiple challenges and we have a list of things that we need to work through, and as we grow and we inspire to do the things, more challenges are going to come on the horizon. I always look at the risk, the long-term impact of each individual challenge. And I always prioritize the 3 most important. And sometimes that means some things don't ever quite get to the top and they don't get addressed like they should. But by addressing the things that are most impactful on the organization, we are mitigating as much risk as possible. And being able to have that testament, we're able to then tell others why this is today's priority. From there, we're going to talk about who it concerns and who it affects. A lot of times in larger organizations, one challenge concerns somebody but affects an entirely different group. And unless both sides understand the reason for that, they really mutually can't come together to help solve the problem. And then from there, we start to have a discussion about the resolution. And then on the right side of this page, we put together a planning board and take action on a plan. Again, we also identify what your role is in this plan. If you're someone that is going to lead the charge, if you're someone that's supervising the role, or if you're going to be someone that's behind the scenes, being able to help administer the process. All those things are part of this plan. And then from here, we talk about what the reward is. Why are we doing this in the first place? What is the goal of breaking down this boulder? The additional support pages are the strength maximizer. I've always been an individual that has not been very strong in some categories of education, including English, but I've utilized my strengths to overcome my weaknesses. And that means from time to time hiring great people to help support my goals and aspirations. Sometimes it means being able to make income and revenue in an area where I'm strong so that I can afford to hire somebody to help in a different role that I'm not as strong as. Whatever the nature is, we need to identify what our key talents are and how we can use those key talents to integrate into our actionable plan. By utilizing those strengths and encouraging an actual plan, we're going to be able to not only build on the organizational strengths, but be able to then flush out the staffing strengths that we have in our organization. And through this plan, we're able then to identify which team members have the best strengths for helping us to achieve maximum results. And the last page is addressing those impacts. With the adaptation process, we go ahead and we identify the impact, how it's affecting the organization. We talk about who it concerns and who it affects, and develop a planning board for how we're going to overcome that impact. And then from there, we build an adaptation process that allows us to continue success through the organization by identifying the triggers for each process change. Just as I stated about talking to the individuals in the organization about the resources that we're going to bring in to mitigate the pinch points, that is part of the trigger, part of that process to help move the business forward as we reach our goals throughout each and every year. And from here, we outline the process and take any notes. Again, one of the most important things is for you to understand your role. As you look at this organizational operating system, I want you to think about your current role. What is it that you're doing? What is the thoughts and ideas that you have in your head for the vision of yourself or the organization in the coming years? Let's have a conversation and start taking note on those things. As we start to look through those ideas and addressing the challenges and identifying your strengths, we're going to have a clear picture of what your real goals are so that you can work towards that 10-year target. Every team, every individual that we build out a framework for this feels that as they move into the first week of their plan, they see real momentum on what it is that they're trying to achieve. In the book Atomic Habits, James Clear talks about just 1% change and how that 1% change week after week after week can make huge impacts on our result. Well, that starts with having good framework so you know where you need to make the changes and where you need to commit the time. This is part of our planning system and is one element that many entrepreneurs, business leaders, and professionals find really useful. If you haven't heard about our planning system, I encourage you to take a few minutes, check out thekeytosuccessplanner.com. I'm Brandon Bodner, the founder, and if you have any questions for me, go ahead, start a chat with our team, or go ahead and hit the comments in this video. Somebody will happily answer. If you're looking for guidance, looking for one-on-one coaching for you or your team, that's available as well. We've coached several businesses over the last years and helped them use this organizational operating system to not only build a framework, but create the foundation for their success. If you learned just one thing in this video, please do me a favor, hit the like button. Go ahead and subscribe to this channel if you want to embark on a professional journey with us. And if you know somebody else that is possibly starting a business, growing a department, or launching a new idea, take a minute, share this with them. I encourage you to. It'll make a difference in their life. With that being said, thank you for taking this time. I hope it was helpful for you. And Lord willing, we'll see you again real soon.